that going to be all right?
Yeah.
Right. So, a couple of people said to me, oh, well, you're speaking next week. They said, what things are you going to bring? What illustrate, because I usually bring a bag of things. So I got a few things, so don't be disappointed. So, yes, today we're going to be looking at one of the parables that is in Luke. So it's Luke 12. So if you want to, you can do your sword. Should we do a sword drill? Who wants to do this one?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Let's just save the sword drill as well.
Sheath your sword.
Yeah.
Draw your sword. Go.
Charge.
Charge. Luke 12.
Yeah.
Oh!
Okay. I'm not asking you to read it. So that's good. So that's where we are. So if you've got there a bit late, you're just on the right time. You know, there's no such thing as late in my book. Right, let's move just into it. Right. So you'll understand. What?
Use the mic as much as you can. Use the mic.
Yeah, well, I can't hold that hammer. Anyway, so I will use the mic like this, perhaps it's easier. So, it all ends up back in the box. You might not know what that means, but you will by the end, hopefully. So, so we look to, so there's a parable, poor guy is called the rich fool in the verse, which is perhaps a bit unkind, perhaps, but there we are. So we're going to read the story first and see what Jesus is about, and then we're going to look at it, pick it apart a bit, and then hopefully take one or two or three little points home. So the first one is, so someone in the crowd, so we know it's a young guy because that's the title, so that's a bit of a giveaway. Teacher, tell me, my brother, to divide the inheritance with me. This is what this guy is coming to Jesus. So Jesus replied, man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? Then he said to them, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, because life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Right. Here's the next one, verse 16. And he told them this parable. So this young man comes to Jesus and asks Jesus a question. There's obviously a shed load of money his father's left. And in those days, the oldest brother got it all, okay? So, and then they had to go to a judge to decide whether they would share it, but if the brother didn't want to share it, it was tough luck. So this young guy was a bit whatever, because his brother got all the money. So Jesus doesn't answer him directly, but he tells a parable, which is a way of sort of saying what he wanted the young man to learn. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I will say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. You've probably heard that few words said. It's a well-known verse, but it's often misquoted. So, this guy, okay, have a think what he's thinking. So, a bit more to the story. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. Then Jesus said to his disciples, Therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat, or what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. So those who were listening to Charlotte's little talk, it was, I don't know if it was deliberate, was it?
No.
No. It was about, God looks after the birds. They don't need to go shopping, and the flowers. So there we are. So that's the story. But there is a bit more to it than that. And so this young guy, I want to think about him a bit. He thought money and possessions is everything. He just wanted to be there. And ladder? Right. Often a ladder is used as an explanation to say, you're progressing, you're climbing up, you might say, I'm on the bottom rung of the ladder. Or you might say, I'm on the upwards. I'm not climbing up, it's all right. But you just sort of say, I'm going to be making progress. So the aim is to get to the top of the ladder. The aim is to be the kingpin or the, I don't know, the next famous person or whatever it is. So the next thing is, he said, talks to himself a lot, doesn't he, this guy? So he says in the first one, if we go back, he says, what shall I do? I've got nowhere to store my crops. So he doesn't seem to have many friends, this guy. I know he's only a pretend guy, but it's a good illustration. He only consults with himself. He asks himself, what shall I do? This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger barns. There I will store my surplus. There we are. I'll eat, drink, and be merry. So that's it, in a nutshell, I suppose. But there's a little bit more to it than that. So this parable is told to explain a deeper meaning. That's what parables are. So Jesus told parables with a deeper meaning to help his followers understand the truth. So this guy, we don't know whether he was following Jesus, the young man at the beginning of the story, but he probably went away with scratching his head a bit perhaps, because he probably isn't what he wanted to hear. He probably wanted Jesus to say, no, their brother's in the wrong, I'll sort him out, send your brother over, I'll give him what for, and you'll have all the inheritance. No, it wasn't like that. So, he said, he had an abundant harvest. That's a key there. So this guy, and yet he was not satisfied. I don't know, I haven't got a lot of money, but if you have, I've heard from those, you always want more. You always want more. Bigger car, bigger house, more gold rings, more this, more that. And it doesn't give you satisfaction. And this young guy wasn't satisfied. So he said, but the abundant harvest, where did that come from? Abundant. Where did that come from? Where did the abundant harvest come from? It came from God. God gave him. He waters the ground with the rain and stuff. So he was in receipt of the goodness of God, but he didn't know it. It's quite sad, really, isn't it? So he just wanted to get his hands on the money. But Jesus, every time we see Jesus, he knows what's going on in somebody's heart. You can't stand before Jesus and pull the wool over his eyes. He doesn't do that. He's like, maybe this isn't how it is. So Jesus then said, build bigger barns, he said to himself, then I'll be satisfied. Well, you and I know, or most of us might know, actually a bigger barn is not the answer. But Jesus knew that too. And maybe the young man who was listening to this parable thought, yeah, this sounds a bit daft, building bigger barns. Because the young man in the story said, oh, I'll eat and drink and then I'll be satisfied. I'll be merry and I won't have to work anymore. And I've got it so sorted. But what he hadn't looked at, he hadn't thought about the big picture of who we are and where we're going. He saw the ladder to satisfaction, and he was missing totally the purpose of being here on earth. The purpose of being here is to follow the cross. The purpose of being here is to surrender to the cross, not follow our own satisfaction. So I feel quite sad for the young man because he didn't seem to have any, here's this bit of balance. So, you know, we can't earn our way to the cross. We can't buy it. We can't do any of those things that we think we might be able to get it some other way. So what's the solution? Because the Bible is clear that success in life isn't measured by how high you get on the ladder. It's not measured by how much money you've got. In God's eyes, in Jesus' eyes, it's what you do with that. It's how you respond to the cross that's important. And this guy, although it was before the cross, he hadn't considered the fact that his life wasn't his at all. Because Jesus says towards the end of the first bit, he says, God says, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Which means he was going to probably die. And this is how it will be for whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. So it's like the kingdom of heaven is like upside down to what society teaches. Society teaches us the only way to find satisfaction is to climb the ladder and get success. But the Bible tells us the only way to know peace and truth and all is to follow the cross. So these are, just for you to take home, the 3 mistakes that the man in the story makes. So, first one. He forgot what was really important, didn't he? He mistook his life on earth as eternity. This, today, where we're at, isn't what it's at. This isn't what it's about. It's about what we do with that message and where we live. So he mistook his life on earth as eternity, and most people live their lives as if this is all that matters. So when Mother Teresa gave up everything, and went to live in the slums of Mumbai, or other people have given up everything to go and serve God, they think, why would you do that when you can climb the ladders of success? The guy also mistook his body for his soul. So he thought, I'll eat, drink, and be merry, and that's all it's about. But he missed the fact that he has a soul. And that's the eternal part of us, the most precious thing. So if you neglect your soul, I've got a very good illustration of neglect. And most of you know I'm quite a good gardener. Well, I like to think I'm reasonably good at gardening, but this one, okay? I got distracted. It was the other weekend when it was my birthday. This was my little cutting. I've been nurturing it from like 2 leaves, and it got to a stage and I put it on and then I've been watering it. And then I got distracted the other weekend when it was my birthday, and I went here, there and everywhere. And I went out in the garden the next day. It'd been really hot, sunny weather over that weekend. And I neglected it. I neglected. And we can do that. We can neglect our soul. We can not put ourselves in a place where we might. If anybody wants to take that home, they might as well. Yeah. So it's time almost for our next our little what do you call it? Sword drop. Right. So we are going to look for. This is a mean one, by the way. It's a mean one. So sheath your sword. Okay. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Draw your sword.
We're going to start. Tactics.
Tactics. So what are you going to attack? What's your tactic?
Well, it's really there's really a rule that people when it
Oh,
goes to the spine because
he's a professional, obviously.
yeah.
Okay. Go. Right, it's it's Ecclesiastes. Oh, you might not know where that is. Ecclesiastes 2, verse 21. If you've got one of those Bibles with a little like thing to tell you where the things are, that's what we're doing. Ecclesiastes 2, verse 21. Got it? Okay, go on in, shout it out.
For the person may labour with wisdom, knowledge and skill, and then they must leave all they own to another who has not toiled for it. This too is meaningless and a great misfortune.
Right. So, the young man in the story and the disciples would have known this because they all listened to the Bible. So, they understood. So, shall I read it again? Does somebody want to shout it out? Isn't he not trying to find Ecclesiastes? Or doesn't he? But basically, it's just saying your life isn't yours. And what you have isn't yours. And when you can't take it with you. I'm sure you've heard all the joke about their whole thing about this guy taking his gold to heaven. Yeah? He says, one thing I want to take is I want to take all my gold to heaven. So he takes his gold with him in a big bag, it's very heavy. So he goes, gets the gate, Peter's at the gate. Well, we know he's probably not at the gate, but he's at the gate, right? And he goes, can I bring my gold in? Can I bring my gold in? He said, why would you want to bring in paving slabs? If you read in Revelation, the streets are paved with gold. So this guy, all he wanted was to take some paving slabs into heaven. So that wasn't what it was about, really. So well done for finding that. So Jesus is speaking rather loudly to this young man in a quiet way, if you know what I mean. Your stuff that you have, you can't take with you. Don't invest in that. Invest in the kingdom, invest in things in your soul. Right. Next one. This is a quote from a guy called Dallas Willard. He's written lots of books on about the soul, and he's American, of course, but he's written lots of books about the soul and about. He's a very good guy, anyway. This is what he says: you're a soul made by God, made for God, and made to need God, which means we were not made to be self-sufficient. So our young man in the story thought he didn't need God. But we're not designed to be self-sufficient. We're designed to need God. And that's not a quote from scripture, but he's looking at the whole thing. There's a whole load of stuff. There's lots to think about, isn't there? So let's give a thought for our soul and give a thought to what Jesus then went on to tell the disciples afterwards. So immediately after this little story, verse 33, he goes to this. That's what do you call it? It's not the whole verse, but it's taking the meaning of the verse, which says, "Heaven's person has no home. Invest in the kingdom, because if you invest in the kingdom, it's money well invested in." So this is the next one. So that's basically the same verse. Sell your possessions and give to those in need. This will store up treasure in heaven. So Jesus says this just after this young man. So all the disciples have been listening to this story. They heard the young man say, and then they heard the parable. And then Jesus says this. He's just confirming the fact that we don't want to be chasing the right things in our lives and pursuing God. So how do we do that? How do we make God the thing? What do we do? How do we nurture our souls? What are the things that help us learn to love God? Now, those of you who are here, that's a good start. And it's also things like spending time thinking about God, spending time. There's the Bible to read, there's stuff you can see online, there's all sorts of stuff. But we invest in our souls. If we don't, if we neglect our souls, even for a short time, over a sunny weekend, we can get very easily distracted from good stuff. I was very distracted from good stuff, but that was the result. The result was disaster, really. That's sad. So if anybody's got any salvias they want to give me, that was my rubbish salvia. Right, so that's all I wanted to say really. I just wanted us to think about the things that are important to us, the things that are, we put as important. I was reminded just now of some people that went overseas to live. They were going over for, I think, to live in Hong Kong for about 5 years. He got a job somewhere. So they wanted to put into storage all the stuff they wanted to have when they got back. Well, 5 years in anybody's life is a long time. So all the stuff they put into storage, things like their computer, they put all their CD collection, they put in all their clothes. Well, in 5 years, fashions have changed. Nobody wants to wear a shell suit, and the old BBC computers. And they came back, they didn't want any of it. And it's surprising what we think is essential isn't actually. And what is essential is to remember the cross and our response to the cross in our lives. So there we are. I have written a poem by. Does somebody want to hear my poem? Yes. Right, okay. I've only written it this afternoon, and I was thinking about this. It's not very clever, okay, so humor me. So it says, "Young man, you want some life advice? Listen here. This life, the here and now, is not where it's at. Make sure you invest in the kingdom. That is where the true treasure is, as I'd say. The true treasure is And don't ever neglect your soul. It's all of you, the eternal you. You choose the ladder of success or the cross of surrender. So don't forget what you have is not really yours. So when it's all over, it all goes back in the box. And that was the sort of thing, the idea that when we finish, when our life is gone, that's it. You know, what was all that stuff we thought was so important? Like the friends that went overseas, all this stuff they kept, you know, the football annuals from 1997. You thought you were not going to live without. But then life changes, doesn't it?